the program, I would like to, first of all, welcome you to this concert, and I'd like to ask your cooperation. 3 separate groups have contributed a lot of money to provide this program today, and the sooner we get started, I think the more you'll enjoy it. Mr. Don Miro has become known throughout the country for his performances on electronic music. He will be performing this evening, and I'll tell you a little bit more about that just before the conclusion of the program. I would like to ask for cooperation during these next 40 minutes because we have been asked to do some taping during this program, some of which will be used for some commercials. So when the performance actually starts, we would appreciate very much if you'd be as quiet as possible. Without further delay, I would like to introduce you to one of the most outstanding performers in the electronic music field and on the synthesizer, Mr. Don Miro.
This morning I'd like to give you a basic introduction to the uses of computer technology in the field of music. I have a variety of instruments and special effects devices up here that I want to show you and demonstrate. We don't have that much time, so I'm going to move it just a little bit here. Let me begin by introducing you with the drummer of the band. Please welcome KPR 77. KPR is, I should say, not very big. He's a drum computer. It's a blank slate that lets you program your drum sounds for an entire song, as you just heard in the first piece. Now, those of you sitting up front may be able to see 2 rows of 8 buttons running parallel with my thumb. Each group of 2 buttons has the name of a drum or part of a drum set on it. For example, buttons 9 and 10 say bass drum, and if I press those 2 buttons, we get a bass drum type sound. Buttons 11 and 12 say snare drum. 5 and 6 and 13 and 14 say open and closed hi-hat. 7 and 8 says high tom-tom. 15 and 16 says low tom-tom. And there's even one on here that says hand claps. Thank you. Now, if you want, you could play this as if you were using a typewriter, but just by hitting the different pads at different times, set up a rhythm groove like this. Now, you don't have to work that hard, though. The little computer in here makes it possible for you to play each drum part one part at a time, and it will remember exactly what part you played when. And to do that, I simply turn it on, and get a little hello sound, and tell it how many beats we want in the measure. Let's say 4 beats in the measure, that's what most songs have, and press start. Now the funny sounding one is beat 1, so it's 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4. It's going to remember whenever I play one of the drum sounds. So I'm going to begin by recording the bass drum. Here we go, 3, 4. Now I'll have the snare drum. Now I'll have the cymbals. Now I'll have the tom-tom. I can make that pattern go faster or slower. Right. Now that's just one pattern. This unit remembers 48 different patterns. This means that you can put in 48 different times or grooves or fill-ins or whatever to use in different songs. Let's say you were writing a song and you had an 8-bar melody and you wanted a fill-in at the end of the phrase. You would record 2 patterns. One would be a straight drum pattern, maybe something like the one I've just programmed, and the second one would be a fill-in. You then tell the computer to play pattern 1, the straight time pattern for 7 measures, and then play pattern 2, which is your fill-in once. When you press play, you'll get an 8-bar phrase with a fill-in on the 8th measure. Now, linking together these programs for a song is called creating a chain. And I want to play a short example of a chain that I've programmed in here, and I want you to hear how the drum computer, instead of just chugging along by itself, is going to match the syncopations or the rhythms that I'll be playing on the keyboards. I'm going to use this sound up here, this sound down here, this sound down here. I think we're ready. I programmed each one of those each one of those hits. You can see how small the unit is. It runs on batteries, so you can sit in the backseat of your car and program your favorite songs. It remembers over 1,500 measures of information. You can store the data from that information on a standard cassette tape. It does a lot more, but I have to get back because it's time to start playing right about now. Somebody answer my drummer. Now, the first drum computer, when it came out commercially, cost about a little over $5,000. This equipment and these instruments, just like computers, have become less expensive and more powerful every year. This thing costs about $300 today. In front of me are two examples of low-cost, microprocessor-based polyphonic programmable synthesizers. And let me just clean that up by saying two things. Number one, polyphonic. Very few people realize that the first synthesizers with keyboards on them, which came out around 1964, could only play one note at a time. It wasn't like playing piano where if you press 3 keys on the keyboard, you'll hear 3 notes. On the old synthesizers, no matter how many keys you pressed, you only heard 1 note. That's how primitive they were by today's standards. This instrument actually contains 6 synthesizers. Each synthesizer is about the size of an IBM card, I guess, that you might get for grades or attendance or whatever. There are 6 of them in here, and it enables me to play up to 6 notes at the same time. So that's what we mean by polyphonic. Now, I'd like to play a short piece to let you hear some of the sounds in the synthesizer, and I'm going to base this on the record which revolutionized the popularity of the synthesizer. It came out in 1968, before most of the rock groups knew what a synthesizer was. It's the largest selling classical record ever released, and it's called Switched on Bach. Now, I did 2 things to change the sound while I was playing. The first was to keep my foot on this pedal right here. This pedal is called a filter pedal, and it's something like a treble control on your stereo set, but it exaggerates the effect quite dramatically. If I close the pedal, the sound is very muted. Let's use this sound. Open the pedal, the sound gets brighter. I can also exaggerate the effect and make it sound like that old cliched wah-wah sound of a few years ago. So that's one way of changing the sound while I'm playing. The other way is to reach over here and press one of the buttons that says Programmer. Now, in the old days of playing synthesizer, if you wanted to change the sound, you had to unplug a patch cord, plug it back in, turn some dials to where you knew they had to go in a very short amount of time. It was very hard, sometimes impossible, to change the sound while you were playing. Again, those days are gone forever. With this synthesizer, I can sit at home, come up with a sound that I like, and if I want to use the sound here or anywhere for that matter, I can press 3 buttons, and the computer scans the settings of all the dials for me, so I no longer have to memorize the settings of perhaps 15 or 20 dials. It stores them in memory on the synthesizer. It's just like saving a program onto a disk or a diskette, but here the memory is inside the instrument. This makes it possible for me to instantly access any one of 32 different sounds by pressing at the most 2 buttons. For example, if I press buttons B1, I get a sound that doesn't duplicate but maybe suggests the sound of instruments like French horns. Lower that sound and make it sound something closer to a tuba. Low strings. Let's get ready here. Now the synthesizer also excels at producing sound effects. Most of the sound effects that you hear today in the high-tech movies being shot are produced electronically. I can use this synthesizer to create sound effects such as crickets, bigger crickets, jumbo crickets, and gorilla crickets. Except crickets don't do this. I can also use it to create percussion sounds. I can use it for water torture sounds. Whoops, that's not water torture. Eastern sounds. Medieval flute or recorder sounds. Pipe organ sounds. Harpsichord. Southern Mississippi Steamboat Calliope. Music box. Western sound. More Western sounds. Century sounds. '21st century sounds. Now I can take that laser type sound and bring it back to the cricket sound like this. Hit it, bring the pitch back up, add some shapes to it. Take it right out of our range of hearing. Like that. So I think you can hear the tremendous versatility that the synthesizer has. Not only in reminding us of sounds that we already know, but also creating sounds that are unique to the electronic medium. I'm going to play another piece featuring all 3 synthesizers, the top one. This bottom one, I'm going to use acoustic guitar type sound. Tune it up. Now this organ pedal board is no longer an organ pedal board, it's a synthesizer pedal board. I had it customized so that it drives the computer, and the computer in turn drives this synthesizer. This is a complete synthesizer. It is functionally identical to the top keyboard, the top synthesizer, but it misses, it doesn't have a keyboard on it. So the keyboard for this synthesizer is right here. So those sounds come from there. And we'll put this here. Now this next piece has a melody on it. That goes like this. You're going to hear it down there, you'll hear it here. Different keys, different times, and with different sounds. It's a piece of music called a fugue, and it would be impossible to play were it not for programmable polyphonic synthesizers. Okay, in front of me, or she says, well, at this point in front of me, in this box here are some special effects devices, and I want to show you a few of them very quickly, since we're almost out of time. This first one is called a digital delay unit. Digital meaning it takes any sound coming into it and turns it into a series of numeric representations, or numbers. The second, it delays a sound for a given amount of time, which I can vary. Now, if I put my voice through it, tell it to repeat the numbers representing my voice at lower values until all the numbers go down to zeros. We'll hear an effect that you hear all the time on records, and the effect is called echo, 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 echo. Now, this used to be done by using tape recorders. Here, it's all being done electronically. I can set it up to produce a very slow echo. 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 Or I can set it up to produce an effect called sampling, where it takes a sound that I put into it and freezes it, doesn't let it out until I say, let it out. I'm going to put this sound into it. Science. 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 Now, I can take that sound and change the pitch of it. Or, I'm going to put a sound in, which is a kind of strange sound, but here it is. Now if I slow that down, it certainly doesn't sound like a vocal sound. Many of the percussion sounds that you hear on records today by a lot of the high techers are not percussion instruments at all. They are vocal sounds transformed by a computer or computer-related technology and used as percussion instruments. I don't think one of you would think that that was a vocal sound. I'll put one more sound in very quickly, and that will be this. Roar. Roar. Now if I slow it down, you can say, oh, Margaret, did you feed the dinosaur? Go back, go back, go back, go back. A little slower, a little slower. Okay, in front of the delay unit is another device, and this device is called a vocoder, V-O-C-O-D-E-R. A vocoder takes any two sounds, they do not have to be electronic sounds, and combines them electronically to produce a composite sound. You can have a barking dog sitting there, a waterfall over here, microphones on both of them, run them into the vocoder, and you'll come out with a barking waterfall. The two sounds that I have, one of them is that sound on the synthesizer, the other is my voice. When I turn the vocoder on, you will no longer hear us as two separate entities.
It now sounds like the synthesizer's talking. The vocoder combines my speech patterns with a pitch on the synthesizer. So if I want to speak in a lower pitched voice, I simply play a lower note. A lower note, a lower note, yeah.
I'm sure you recognize that sound on many records. However, I'm only playing one note. If I play chords, it sounds like this, sounds like this, sounds like this, sounds like this. Here's another application of the vocoder in a more musical context. I'm not singing, I'm just speaking into the microphone, and the vocoder will be adding a pitch